Just to say good morning, everybody. You're very welcome here this morning. My name is Catherine Hayes, and I'm the Associate Professor in Public Health here in TCD. And I'm going to try and tell you a little bit of what medical school is like here at TCD this morning. I will give you the opportunity to ask questions along the way, and we can certainly take questions at the end if you have any questions. So I hope you enjoy and you get something out of it. It's great to see such a big enthusiastic crowd. I think we always have an enthusiastic crowd for medicine here in Trinity, but it's good to see such a big turnout. This is just the structure of my talk, a few things that I'll tell you about medicine, the admissions process, why one would choose medicine at TCD, the structure of the curriculum that's involved, and an overview then of the curriculum, and then a little bit, I suppose, about the long and winding road that is involved in a medical career. First, a few points about medicine. The medical school program was established in August 1711. Okay? It's a 5-year program here in Trinity, and it is, I think, the only school now that has a completely undergraduate 5-year program. We don't have graduate medicine here at TCD, not yet anyway. We have 123 CAO places. The total intake is 180 when you take into account international students. The Trinity Biomedical Science Ireland was launched in June 2012. And here is the institute, the TBSI, or the Trinity Biomedical Sciences Institute. And this is where the medical students will be placed in the earlier part of your career. So it's a very new building. About 22% of the student population is non-traditional. Okay, and that refers to students that enter via the mature entry program and also by access routes, which is available for disadvantaged, for students who might not be able to afford to come to Trinity in the traditional sense. And about 30% of your class will be from non-EU, so about 30% international students. And we welcome that very much in Trinity across all programs, because one of the key aims of Trinity's strategic plan is to have to foster and develop overseas and international links. Okay? All right, well, turning to the admissions. In 2013, the entry points for Trinity were 748, and that's the combined Leaving Cert and HPAT results. Unfortunately, and it's particularly cruel, not all students who actually attained those points got a place, and random selection therefore applied, which, as I say, I think is particularly cruel for people who actually do achieve those points. But unfortunately, that's the way the system is. For those who undertake, don't know what's happened there. I'm not quite sure why we're not. Oh, you are projecting. It's just not projecting on the screen there. Okay, all right. Well, you're projecting, but I'm not. But anyway, this one is. That's okay now. And basically, there are proportionality formulas for students who sit A-levels or the International Baccalaureate. And so all of these details, if you need them, can be found on the TCD admissions website. If you want to make an application for one of the non-traditional places, students need to contact the relevant office, and there are specific offices and officers for each of these programs. There's a mature student officer, there's an international office, and all of these will have a stand at today's open day, and you will find the stand upstairs on the 2nd floor. And I would encourage everybody, and we'll be saying this at the end anyway, to make sure you find the 2nd floor, because you will have current students there who will answer your questions and who are probably best placed to answer your questions, and you'll also have some lecturers there as well. So please do make sure you do that. Even if you get nothing else out of this talk, do that. It is very competitive, as you probably know. There are over 1,000 applicants for those 123 places and then the additional places. So it's not an easy task to come and study medicine at Trinity, I'm afraid, but I think you know that already. And any queries relating to the admissions should be directed to the admissions office. Okay. Any questions? Okay. Well, why would anybody come to study medicine at TCD, and what makes Trinity different from the other colleges that offer medical school courses? From the first year of the 5-year programme, we have patient contact. All of the medical students make contact with a family and conduct a family case study. So they actually go out and visit a family in their homes and write up a case study around that family. So that's actually quite unique to Trinity, in that you have patient contact and know how to make patient contact right from that very first year. Research-directed teaching is what we are all encouraged to do here at TCD, and that means that all of your learning is based on research and research-oriented. And because of that then, all students in second year medicine have an opportunity to do a research project. Now, students, absolutely almost all of the students have never done any formal research before. So this is a very nice opportunity. And in the department where I work, which is a combined public health and primary care department, I will have 2 students now coming this year, and they will be spread right across all the medical schools, attached to all the different disciplines. And my 2 students are going to carry out a little project on awareness of skin cancer and what you do to protect yourself against skin cancer. So a nice, if you like, relatively simple project, but with huge public health implications. And so that's what my students, who won't have done any research before, will be doing this year. In all years, the size of your lectures will vary. Some days you'll be in groups as small as 8 students, and others you'll be in a lecture hall like this. Okay, so it's going to vary quite dramatically, and with the particular stage you're at and the particular discipline that you're attached to. Just to say, in relation to Trinity, what you have here is the opportunity to take an intercalated, it's called MSc. And this is usually maybe after 3rd year. It can be earlier. But students have the opportunity to take a master's. They can step out for a year and do a related master's program. And I had a summer student last year, and he had previously undertaken an MSc in neuroscience. And then he came back into 4th Med, and he did some research with me then over the summer, funded by the Health Research Board. So there are opportunities like that, which you don't find in other medical colleges. I mean, that's not open to everybody, but there are about 10 or 15 places every year for that. Similarly, there is an Erasmus option. Again, it wouldn't be available to everybody, because the Erasmus program, which is basically an exchange program through a nominated Erasmus school, and they're all over Europe, even North America, and all the students from Trinity have opportunities to participate in Erasmus programs. So it's not just the medical school, but it is wonderful to be able to go to France for a year. And at the moment, our Erasmus program only operates on exchange to France. But again, it's a lovely opportunity if you feel inclined to do it and if you have the opportunity to do it. Student engagement is very important in Trinity, and essentially the school is very supportive of student needs, and it allows student representatives to sit on a number of committees across the school, and that's a very good thing. So students are encouraged to be represented. It's not a them and us situation. And then the Foundation Scholarship. Well, the Foundation Scholarship is one of the longest standing traditions at Trinity. And this allows outstanding students to undertake a searching examination in a subject related to their course. And If you become a foundation scholar, I say you have to be outstanding, but you are granted a number of privileges in the college. Each student is assigned a tutor for the duration of their time at Trinity, who is an academic member of staff, and this tutor will act as an advisor and a confidant to you during your time here. So it's very helpful to have that person who isn't your immediate lecturer, but who is available to you, that you can discuss any matters or that might actually be inhibiting your progress, or even information that you need to find out. And of course, one of the big selling points of Trinity is this location in the heart of Dublin. And you probably all know that just about a little bit up that way as you go out the door now is the new entrance to Pearse Street Station. So it is very accessible and very commutable. And students love that because it is the centre of town, because you are in the heart of Dublin. And again, part of Trinity's strategic plan is about engagement with the local community. And that, is part, as a student here, you are a part of the local community around Pearse Street and around this area. So it's important to actually remember that. Any other questions before I move on to the curriculum? Okay, clear as mud, obviously. Good. Okay, just in relation to the curricular structure, it has 3 phases basically. And the first year, it deals with humanity, or the arts and the human side of medicine, health, and the environment. And that's basically, if you like, the essential component really of phase 1. The majority of your teaching here in phase 1 will be based in this building, in the TBSI building. Phase 2 then encompasses years 2 and 3, and it introduces you to molecular medicine. And Trinity is very renowned internationally for its research into molecular medicine, and is one of the very high profile specialties here at Trinity. And it in fact attracts a very large amount of research funding, both from in Ireland, from various bodies like Science Foundation Ireland, etc., but also international funding as well. So that aspect and the neuroscience aspect are very much to the fore in terms of Trinity. Phase 2 and 3, obviously, you will start to develop your clinical skills and understanding of the mechanisms of disease also. In the phase 2, the majority of your teaching will still be here, but with 1 day a week then spent on site in the hospitals. And the teaching hospitals that are available to students at Trinity are St. James's and Tala. And so 1 day a week in phase 2 will be spent on site in the hospitals. And our department, my department, is based in Tala, and that's where the students come for when they come to us. It totally flips then in phase 3, okay? Almost all of your base will be in St. James's or Tala. It'll be almost entirely hospital base, and with much less kind of, if you like, formal lectures based here or whatever. You'll be almost entirely on site. And in those sites, I mean, they are totally set up for, with lecture rooms, with seminar rooms like here. I mean, there's a full suite of teaching facilities in both Tala and St. James's, where the Trinity Medical School students will be. Phase 3 is very much then patient-based and using your, what we call evidence-based practice, your research-based practice then to inform your teaching. This looks a little bit complicated, but it's no harm to go through it. This is the overview as such of the curriculum for each year, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And you can see year 1 focuses on the basic sciences, biochemistry, your anatomy, human development, behavioural science and ethics. And that's where the kind of family case study comes in to that part. Okay? And then, say, science and the humanities. And that gives the opportunity for the student to select a particular aspect within that module. So that's really your kind of more, it has replaced, I suppose, the traditional kind of pre-med program where it's much more clinically focused now, but it does incorporate, obviously, the anatomy, physiology, etc., that would have been part in biochemistry. That would have been really almost the entire part of the traditional pre-med program, which is what I would have had to do a number of years ago. Okay. Year 2 then, you're moving on to the principles of pharmacology, and that's all about your pharmacology, your drugs, all that basic biochemistry that applies to all of those, if you like, drugs, etc. And practical scientific research. As I said, neuroscience very much to the fore in Trinity. That's your kind of lab-based research, which will be the forefront of translating all of that lab-based research into practical applications in the clinical arena. Your head and neck anatomy, which is quite specialised, and that will be done with the dental students, because of course their focus is almost entirely on head and neck anatomy. The molecular and translational medicine, which I just really mentioned, that's the bench science, and that bench science and a little bit about its ability to translate into clinical practice. It's called from bench to bedside, and that's really, if you like, the ultimate goal of research. So you'll be still learning the bench medicine at that point, and in later times you'll be looking at the bedside medicine, very much so. The clinical biochemistry then, so all those Krebs cycles and all of those kind of things, I mean, that you're probably familiar with from your chemistry anyway. Again, where does that apply in clinical practice? And it is becoming more and more relevant to refined medical practice with now the recognition of how much of a role that genes and biomarkers and all of these things play in whether or not we develop disease, whether we respond to particular drug treatments, etc. So the clinical biochemistry becoming very much more relevant. And I say the fundamental etiology and mechanisms of disease, and understanding those is very important and obviously essential if you're going to be treating patients and treating them effectively. And your fundamental clinical skills then, and your professional practice. So that's really year 2, much more towards that transition now from the very basic sciences to where you can see it might be applied. And then in year 3, you're moving more so then into the clinical arena. Still the pharmacology and therapeutics, very important, and your laboratory and investigative medicine, still, say, very important. But you are going to be then involved in the principles of medical and surgical practice, and that's on the wards basically. So this will be your clinical, medical and surgical rotation, ophthalmology, that's eyes and ear, nose and throat, your advanced clinical and professional practice, and the principles and practice of evidence-based medicine and elective practice phase 1 in year 3. And then as we move on to phase 4 then, again, you're very much still in your clinical arena, your obstetrics, gynecology, your pediatrics and child health. That's when you come to public health and epidemiology, which is my specialty, and primary care, general practice, and all of that happens in 4th year. Your psychiatry, forensic medicine or jurisprudence as it's called, and again your professionalism and scientific method. I mean, that will be very much to the fore through all of these latter years, okay? And your elective practice phase 2. And then finally, your final year in medicine is basically about integrating that medical science and practice. So you will have learned all of that basic stuff now, how it translates, the mechanism of disease, the practice, medicine, surgery, pediatrics, psychiatry, public health, general practice, etc., and how all of this is integrated now in your final year. Okay? And so your integrated medical science, surgical science, and your competency-based preparation for practice. Otherwise known then your elective practice phase 3. So that's really how the medical school program curriculum develops over the 5 years, so that at the end of it, we are turning out competent doctors who are able to practice professionally. The elective practices that I just mentioned, basically, your elective practices, you will have 3 periods of attachment. And in 4th year, when you come to public health and primary care, you actually spend 4 weeks in total in general practice. 2 weeks in an urban general practice, 2 weeks maybe in Donegal or a very rural general practice. So you can get a sense of how general practice operates in an urban and rural setting. And people like those electives very much. The elective phase 1 in 3rd year is attached to a medical specialty in the hospital, and you're attached for that entire period to that particular specialty. And then you have a further elective attachment then in phase 5. So, if you don't want to ask me any questions about that, I'll just tell you a little bit, I suppose, about myself and why I chose medicine. And I don't know why you are interested in choosing medicine, but it is certainly a long and winding road. But it is also a rewarding road. When I chose medicine, I was, I would say, much younger than you. I finished my Leaving Cert at 16 years old, and it was 6 years then, including a pre-med year. So I finished medicine at 22. I chose medicine because I had been exposed a little bit to general practice. I mean, my parents weren't general practitioners. I wasn't from a medical family, but my real only experience of medicine was through general practice. And I liked it, obviously. It had an impact on me, and I felt I would like to do something like that. And I haven't ended up in general practice, but that's part of the long and winding road. So when I finished, say, my Leaving Cert, I went off to UCC and started my medical career there. My preclinical years, which were kind of, if you like, 1st, 2nd and 3rd year, and then my clinical years, 4th, 5th and 6th. So it was quite different and much more separated from the more integrated programme that you will be exposed to here. In terms of specialties, when I finished my intern year at Cork University Hospital, or Cork Regional Hospital as it was known then, I undertook a GP training rotation in general practice in Cork on the vocational GP training scheme. And we also now, in our department, we have a Trinity GP vocational training scheme. So it's interesting that I've ended up in a combined department of general practice and public health. But I finished my GP training programme and I came to Dublin, and I sort of looked around for an opportunity in general practice, but didn't really find anything. I worked in the Mater for a while, I worked in medicine for the elderly, and then I decided I would do a master in public health. So I went off and did a master's programme in public health at UCD, and after that then, I did a public health specialist rotation training programme. And that's what you do. I mean, for all of the specialties, you will have to do a specific rotational training programme. I completed part of that in the UK, in Wales, and it's always good to get some international experience. And I came back here and I worked as a public health specialist for many years in what's now the Health Service Executive, but before that was the Eastern Health Board and the Eastern Regional Health Authority and all the different formulations of what's now the HSE in the eastern part of the country. So I did that, and then the opportunity came up to be a lecturer in public health in Trinity, and I had gone off and done my MD, which is basically the medical equivalent of a PhD, which is required for any academic appointment. And I had managed to complete my MD while working in practice. So you can see medicine, you're only on, it's a constant evolution, you're constantly learning. It's certainly not, I'm qualified now and that's it. That's actually just the start. So anyway, I finished my MD and I was very fortunate to be appointed to Trinity. And I also still have a half-time appointment in the practice with HSE in public health practice. So what I will say is, if you don't particularly like one part of your medical program, there will be other parts, that appeal to you. It's quite different, it's quite varied. The job varies from day to day. There are lots of challenges, particularly in those studying phases, without a doubt. everybody has to keep up with continuous medical education. So you're on a learning for life. You're not on a learning to get in to do medicine in Trinity or to get in until you qualify, because basically that really is, I would say, only the beginning. But for all that, it's a very rewarding journey. I mean, my own journey has evolved. It kind of meandered a little bit maybe, stop-started, but you can, as I say, you may not stick with the specialty you started out with, but that doesn't mean that another specialty won't have appeal for you. So I would say the variety is really wonderful about medicine. I mean, it does have its challenges. I mean, you're all aware of rising consumer expectation, increased regulation, all of those very negative things, and quite a lot of negative publicity. I mean, that's there at the moment about doctors. But I think, despite that, I think medicine is a very rewarding career, but it is a very committed career. And there's no doubt that if you're not committed to medicine, basically, really, you're not going to stay the course. I think really that's about all that I want to say. I'm very happy to take any questions. And just to say, to remind you about that desk, the medicine stand in the knowledge exchange area, now that's the formal bit, okay, on the second floor, and where you will be able to meet people and discuss any queries that you have on a one-to-one basis. And you can also participate in the clinical skills demonstration, and this is on basement level 2. We're on basement level 1, but if you go down one, you can do the clinical skills demonstration, which again might have some practical appeal for you. And I did mention the admissions office, all right? So.